Hello. We are going live. Okay. Tag Krista. Hello, hello, hello. I see some beautiful faces coming on. Hello to Lisa. Hello, Beth. So tonight, hello, my gorgeous. Tonight, I wanted to come on and it's been kind of, yay, Emily, hello. It's been kind of an odd couple of days. Yes, I think you do, Mo. I actually need to check the mail today. So let's just, there was a problem with my mail, like they didn't have my name for the mail. So, thank you. Thank you. I have my queen shirt on. See, it says I am a queen. Today I am a queen of everything. I am the queen of everything tonight. Yeah. It's been a really, really odd week. I don't know if Crystal is here. Crystal, if you're here, can you give me a shout out? I wanted to see if we could give it a share to the groups. Thank you. Tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey. I think it's been a while since I've actually talked about my journey. I want to talk about how the journey of my paranormal experiences and my hot mess express turned from being subdued by spirit, being oppressed by spirit, into owning who I was and understanding who I was and understanding the energy behind who I was, understanding my mediumship ability, and how that mediumship ability actually connected me to the goddess. And from that point, the teachings that I did and my turn from Christianity into eclectic paganism, into a faith that I choose to be not so, I choose not to call myself anything, but at the same time, my faith sort of lies in the old ways, and how that led to Invoked, and how that has led to my mentoring, my teaching. Because I think it's really, really important to not only understand why somebody does something. Okay, thank you, Val. I think it's really important not to only understand or to know why somebody does something, but to know why they do it, right? I'm always a fan of, like, if I'm doing something, I want to know all the mechanics behind it, right? So if I am calling in people to work with me, then I want them to know where I came from. I want them to understand the journey and why some of the programs have been created, and why I'm continuing to move forward with the programs that I've created. So my journey began, well, as you all know, I mean, it's a born ability. It's a natural born ability. So, I mean, I could go back to the moment I was born, but we would be here for 4 hours, 12 hours. Who knows? Let's just take it back. As a small child, I would have the most, and you know, for those of you who are watching, this is also really, really important. For those of you who are watching who may have some of these experiences and trying to understand these experiences, what I'm about to tell you may also help you understand yourself and understand maybe some of the fear principles, or maybe why some of the things are happening to you the way that they're happening to you. Okay, so I'm going to share authentically. I'm going to share my journey sort of open, so that if any of you are having some similar experiences, it can help you to make sense of why you're having those experiences. Okay, I feel really, really called to do this tonight. I feel really, really called to do this tonight because there's been a lot of weird energy around me. There's been a lot of weird energy around some of the stuff that I'm doing. Hey, Karen. Crystal is here. Crystal, can you do that beautiful thing that you do? Can you do that beautiful thing that you do for me, and share it with Spiritually Motivated and my page? That would, look at you. Look at you. You're awesome. Okay. So, we'll take the journey back to when I was a kid. I can remember having the most incredible, what do they call it? Imaginary friends. And you're amazing. Imaginary friends, right? So I would have all these imaginary friends, and these imaginary friends would often, the height of when they would sort of show up was when I was going off to sleep. I would go to bed, and at that time, we were talking back in the 70s, okay? I'm 46 years old. I'm 46 years old, so we're going back a little bit, okay? So it was back in the day of the Charlie's Angels. Okay, so I can remember being in my bed and getting ready to go to sleep, and my ears would ring. And then all of a sudden, this dog that I had when I was a baby, like, my mom tells me about this dog. I don't really remember him, but when I was little, I remembered him, right? He would show up. So the dog would show up first, and then all my imaginary friends would show up, and I was like one of the Charlie's Angels, and I knew we were going off into missions. And that lasted for years. Like, I can remember all kinds of journeys through my dreams, and journeys in astral travel. I can remember that, and it was exciting. It was fun. I don't know that I ever really like openly shared it with everybody. I just thought it was something that I did. You know, I didn't question whether it was something crazy or something abnormal. It was just something I did, right? And so I would go off on these journeys, and I going back now, of course, it was looking back. It was my spirit guides, and I was astral traveling. I was learning a lot, and I was doing a lot of things, doing a lot of healings, and all of that. So, like, spirit was prepping me from the time I was a small kid, right? Well, as I started getting a little bit older, and when I say a little bit older, I'm like between the ages of like 10 and 13, I became really, really curious around paranormal events. And I think it was just a natural curiosity. I think it was just a very natural kind of curiosity. I don't think it was anything like, ooh, you know, I want to be, Karen, I love you. So Karen and I are like the same age. She totally gets the whole Charlie Angels thing, right? I was Bo Derek, of course. Hello. I don't remember her name, but I remember I was Bo Derek. Come on now. I mean, if you're going to be a Charlie's Angel, you might as well be Bo Derek, right? I have to drink wine for this event tonight. So, oh my God, that just made me laugh. So between the ages of 10 and 13, I was really just generally curious. I mean, and it wasn't because I wanted to become a medium, or it wasn't because I was into ghosts. I was just generally curious, right? So anything that involved any kind of like ghosts or goblins, or, you know, we went to Salem, Massachusetts when I was like 9. Anything to do with witchery, you know, I was totally into. It was totally my thing. And I believe I was 10 years old. Maybe 10 or 11, when I watched the movie Sybil. And Sybil was a movie about a woman who had personality disorder, multiple personality disorder, right? So she had multiple personalities, and she would take on these different personalities, and they would be talking to her inside her head, and she would start to see these people out front, in front of her, and she'd become sort of those people. Well, all I knew is that people were talking to me inside my head, right? And it terrified me, because that was the moment that I began to think that maybe there was something abnormal about me. Maybe there was something wrong with me. Maybe I had some kind of mental disease. So I began to hide it. And I was really intent on hiding it. And really intent on hiding it. And then unless it was something that was so incredibly like powerful or scary, that I would go and I would share it with my mom. Well, I love my mom. My mom's a beautiful woman, but my mom, hello. My mom really had turned her life very deeply into religion. Very deeply into religion. So whenever I would tell her these things, she would tell me that, oh my God, it was double spawn, or that it was, it wasn't good, it was evil, and we have this in our family. And so she recognized it was in our family, and she said, you don't want to turn that way, and but I couldn't stop it. I didn't understand what was happening to me. I didn't know. Yeah, thank you. I'm the queen of everything. I'm the queen of everything. So a year or two later, the movie The Exorcist. Y'all remember the original Exorcist, right? It was when I was a kid. It was actually in theater, but it was coming on TV. And my mom was going out the night that it was supposed to be like debuting on TV. It was like such a big deal. Like everybody was talking about it, right? So the night that it was debuting on TV, my mom was actually going out to a dinner party. And she was like, don't you watch that program. Don't you watch that program. It's going to scare the hell out of you. It scared grown men out of their seats. So don't you watch that program. And so I was like, okay, I won't watch it. Well, my babysitter fell asleep. And so guess what? I watched it. And from that moment on, up until I was about 27 years old, the paranormal experiences, and it wasn't because of the movie. Like, the movie didn't invoke that for me. I crossed the level into another fear, where my mom had talked about it being devil spawn and all of that. It ended up it became something that looked very real to me. And I was in a state of terror most of the time. I hardly ever slept. And when I did sleep, I would have horrific nightmares. Everywhere I would go, I would have paranormal experiences. And it didn't matter what house I lived in, what house we moved into, because we moved every 4 years back then. It didn't matter what house we moved into, there was always paranormal experiences. I'd go out with my friends, and freaky things would happen, and nobody would know why. And of course, I just hid that. I just hid it. I would have people would die in the town, and I would hardly know them. They would show up in my dreams. They'd be showing up because I couldn't see. I had more of the fun spiritual friends following me, and I would see ghosts and things, but I wasn't like, oh, it's a ghost, it just didn't it didn't faze me. And I can even remember being like 8 or 9 years old and going to the bathroom and telling my imaginary friends, okay guys, you can't come in here with me. And I would tell them, like, I would direct them, I was like so in charge of my gift. And I didn't even like know I had a gift. I just thought it was just part of who I was. But I remember telling them they couldn't go in the bathroom with me. But what was happening, this is why I think this conversation is really important, Karen, is because once I watched the show and I had the fear of what the Hollywood had done in this movie, it became something that was very real for me, right? It became something that was very frightening for me. Well, the problem is that I couldn't see them. I could see my imaginary friends. But like when it came to like other stuff, paranormal stuff, ghostly kind of stuff, I couldn't see them, but I could hear them and I could feel them. And that was more terrifying. That was more terrifying than not being able to see them. Right? Because I remember times I'd be like, God, if you would just like show your face, like I could just feel it, like I would just feel all over my body. And what happened is the more fear I had, the more fear I created. And being in a house with a mom who was like, did not want to understand my ability, did not want to give it any kind of credit, and instead would try to veer me away from the ability, made it 10 times worse. And so I spent the majority of my life in fear. Whenever there was a Ouija board that came out, and there was a lot of times Ouija boards came out, if I was there, they would go freaky. Something freaky would happen. I mean, just terribly freaky. If we, were partying and, and like drinking at 18, not supposed to be drinking, partying, like something would happen. Something freaky would happen. And I never really realized it was like my energy that was drawing it. It was just like it was there all the time. And then I would see things that other people didn't see. And I would be afraid to tell people what that was or that I saw it. And so I would sit in silence and sort of bite my tongue and just like take a breath. It would scare me. It would terrify me. And this lasted all the way up until I was 27 years old. So I had the most beautiful, I actually, I've been talking about doing a, what's it called, a podcast, and maybe talking about some of the stories, maybe doing a podcast on the stories, and doing a look back, like this was the story, this is what happened, and then like talking about like the looking back at it now. I don't know if everybody would be interested in something like that, but I've been rattling that off in my head. Do I do a podcast on my ghost stories? Okay. I've got the app downloaded to my phone to start it. Yeah, I do need to write a book. I do. I need to do something with it. Well, there's so many stories. There's good stories. There's not just like, and even in the mix of that, there's really some really cool, good stories, some really nice stories, and then there's some absolutely terrifying stories, absolutely beyond terrifying stories. Things that, like, I look back now, I'm like, oh my God, like, this will make your toes curl, right? There's things like, teach people how you conquered the fear and how the rest of us can. Well, this is exactly what I'm leading to tonight, Karen. Exactly what I'm leading to tonight. Because when I was 27, I tried to pour myself into church. Because I was trying to become a better person. I thought, well, maybe there's something wrong with me, right? Maybe there's something wrong with me. So I tried to pour myself into church. And I poured my child into church. And my child was coming home just sweet and innocent. Just a baby, saying things like, Mommy, the devil told me to do this. And it was like awful things. And Mommy, the devil told me to do that. And Mommy, the devil told me to do this. And it was like horrible things. And I realized at that point that my child maybe had the same kind of gift I had, or maybe had the same kind. At that point, it wasn't called a gift. At that point, it was called some kind of curse, right? That maybe he shared in some of the ability that I had. And I would just looked at him, and I was 27. I was 23 when he was born, so he's like 4, right? He's 4, and I look at him, and I'm like, there is no such thing as the devil. And like at that point, I didn't believe it, right? I was like, there's no such thing as the devil. It doesn't exist. It's not real. It's made up stories to make boys like you be good little boys and not bad little boys, right? I mean, I'm like telling him it's a fairy tale and it's not real. And yada, yada, yada. And he believed me. Total faith in what I was saying. And then all the story stopped. There was no mean devil talking to him. There was no mean energies talking to him. There was nothing scary happening. He wasn't telling me that the devil was making him do things or trying to tell him to do things. It just completely ended right there. And I went, That was my first point of awakening. I had realized at that point that something in my own fear was creating more fear and creating more stories for me. And that was long before I was really understanding law of attraction. I think it was like just coming out, maybe just stepping into it. I think I bought a book that was like, you could take your power back, and it was sort of entrance into law of attraction. But I didn't really understand it. And then I went out to, there was a Halloween festival that I used to love to go to. They had like hay rides and palm readers and tarot readers and stuff. And we used to go every year at Halloween. So I go and I see this palm reader. And she literally like sits me down. She looks at the palm of my hand and she's like, we gotta talk. And like that was the first time that like the word medium came into play. That was the first time that I like actually could have even considered the fact that I might be a medium. From what she could see from my hands and what she could see from my stories, she basically told me that I had a very powerful gift of mediumship, and that the reason why I was going through all the experiences that I went through was because I had a very powerful gift of mediumship, and it was because I could connect to those different kinds of energies that I was seeing them. And so like that was the first time I sort of got an idea like, well, maybe I'm a medium. Maybe you know, all this stuff is real. Maybe like maybe I'm not crazy after all. Maybe it's not bad. So at that point in my life, I was hot mess express times express times express. Like I was a total literal mess. My life was a mess. My relationships were a mess. My friendships were a mess. My finances were a mess. I was a hot mess. I was borderline between deciding if I was crazy or a medium, or just crazy, or just literally insane, or whether or not I had some kind of multiple. I was still battling with the idea that maybe I had some kind of multiple personality disorder, right? Maybe these voices inside my head were like other versions of me, and I was like, I would like try to pay attention to see if I was missing time. Like I was always constant. I mean, it was bad. Like it was really, really bad. I was really freaked out. And I was like, you know, like I would like watch the clock, like make sure you're not missing any time, because if you're missing time, then you may need to go like see somebody, right? And so I was borderline hot mess express. Yeah, it was insane. It was completely and totally insane. And so I found a mentor. And I actually found a mentor online. And the mentor that I found, she actually picked me up for free. Like she, in the very beginning, she sort of like mentored me for free. Of course, later on it wasn't that. But for the very, very beginning, when I was in my terrified state, she helped me to remember who I was and helped me to understand what mediumship was. And she sort of turned bat-ass crazy on me at the end, but and she was sort of a well-known medium at the time, and I respected her opinion, respected her advice. So she sort of helped me understand my fear principle, right? And one of the things that I learned from her, one of the concepts that she gave to me that really made sense to me is the concept of free will. And how when we are born into this, born into life, born into these human bodies, that we actually have something called free will. And because we have free will, that gives us dominion over our experiences, including spirit. So it gives us dominion over our personal experiences, our relationship experiences, our physical experiences, but it also gives us dominion over spirit. It gives us dominion over the dark side of spirit. It gives us dominion over all of that. Hello, Sarah. So in that, like, it really it began to elevate me. I mean, I was to the point, guys, where I didn't even sleep unless all the lights were on and the TV was on. I mean, my house was like, we leave a light on for you. Everyone come here, because it'd be 4 o'clock in the morning and every light would be on in my house. TV's going, whatever it was. I didn't turn radios on because radio stations would change. So I didn't turn radios on. I was terrified of radios. I was terrified of meditating because if I closed my eyes, I would see scary stuff. So I wasn't sleeping. Again, I would have broken sleep, and I would have like really powerful dreams. Now, from the time I was a little girl, I would have all these psychic dreams, which only added to the scary. So I was like always trying to understand my dreams, always trying to understand the path between my dreams. I was just a mess. I was just a freaking mess. And when I finally decided, I'm taking some of my power back. I'm taking some of my power back, and I still had a lot to wrestle with, but I started, the first night, I was terrified. Now, I'm somebody who doesn't give up easily. I am somebody, I'm hard-headed that way. I don't give up easily, so I was not ready to give up on this. And I decided that if I was going to face the biggest fear I had faced in my 27 years, one of the things that I was going to do was I was going to go to bed as like a normal adult. I was trying to go to bed at the same time as my 4 or 5-year-old son because I didn't want to be up by myself. I was going to go to bed at the same time as normal adults. I was going to turn off all my lights. I was going to turn off my TV, and now I was going to sleep in the dark. Now, the first night that I did that, I think it took me an hour and a half to 2 hours to go to sleep. But when I finally went to sleep, the next morning I woke up and it was like I had the best night's sleep of my entire life. Because there was no electronics, there was no lights, and it was just a very deep and very powerful, powerful sleep. And that night was the first night I started to communicate with my spirit guides again, as an adult. Okay, because I had closed all that other stuff off. I closed off anything that was good. It was all scary. It was all bad. For as far as I was concerned, it was all bad up until that point. And so then I began the path of like developing my mediumship and understanding myself in my mediumship, understanding the energy around me. And as I was doing that, I was really connecting with my spirit guides, really, like, it was happening really fast. I mean, all the good stuff started coming back, right? I was like releasing fears, and all the good stuff started coming back, and I was like really like elevating, meeting my spirit guides, and I was being led and intuitively guided, and it was just so freaking incredible. And I was led to this really cool UK forum. It was at that time it was, and this is going back not too long ago, I think I was like 33, 34. It was a UK forum, and at that time the chat feature had just become the new thing, and they had it, and it was so cool, right? Because you could actually chat with one another like we do all the time here on Facebook and here on Telegram and things like that. But at that time it was something new, and it gave us an ability to reach people. And I was reaching people in the UK, and it was so cool. I was meeting people in England and Scotland, and I was like loving it, right? And so I was there just to sort of like hang out and be, just still in my development, still learning how to read. Because at that point in the game, if you were a medium, then your job was to do readings, right? That's sort of all I sort of understood. But then that UK forum we started learning a little bit more about me and my dream sequences and things like that. So I started teaching about dreams. And oh my God, I was like, I can remember because I asked Spirit before they asked me if I would do it. I was like, I would love to teach something on dreams. Like, nobody's teaching anything on dreams. Everybody's teaching about mediumship and psychic abilities. Like, I would love to teach something on dreams. And it was like not 3 days later that they asked me. And so I can remember just being like, oh my God, like this is so cool, right? And one of the things that they would say to me is that it was like a lot of teachers from that UK forum were saying to me, like, you really work well in the light. Like, you really teach well in the light. And I'm like, so I was taking that to mean, that like there was nothing light about me. Like I came from the darkness, but when I came into the light, I was really good in the light, right? I mean, there was still all these stories. So I was like, oh my God, they do see that there's a darkness about me. There's still that darkness about me. But when I go into the light, I do a really good job. And I'm like I wasn't like getting it, right? So there was still a lot of development that happened. And then I reconnected with my early mentor. We made up from whatever story we had before, and we started helping one of a really cool guy who has another UK school. We helped him sort of develop, and then she had a falling out with him, and so her and I decided to build a school called HSI, and we brought on another cool lady to help us. So there was like 3 of us, and then of course there was lots of fallout, but right before that period between the UK forums and HSI, my curiosity started speaking again about other kind of faiths and beliefs. Like I was really like letting loose of my Christianity, my strong Christianity faith, and I was trying to reduce the fear surrounding around that. And I was in meditation one time because I did combat my meditation. I was actually an addict in meditation. I did like a meditation, an hour in the morning, an hour at night. I loved it. Once I got past the fear of meditation, like it was like on like Donkey Kong, like because I don't give up, right? So I was like meditating for like 2 hours a day, and I was in this meditation, and I can still see it. It was so powerful that I could still see it. I was walking along this beautiful beach, and it wasn't, I lived at the beach at the time, but it wasn't our beach. Like it was something more divine. It was just like this beautiful white. Everything was white and like blue, and there was even aspects of like darkness, but it wasn't scary. Like it was beautiful, right? And I saw this woman sitting on the beach, and she was all cloaked, and my first thought was, oh my God, there's Mother Mary, right? And so I was like, because I was scared at first, because I was leaving Christianity, I was like changing my faith, and I was like, oh my God, it's Mother Mary. And as I began to walk to her and I came closer to her, she transformed in front of me, and she introduced herself to me as Hecate. And that was before I even knew what a Hecate was, or anything. I really didn't know anything about her, and just had this like really beautiful sort of kind of space where there wasn't really much said, but there was a lot of feeling, and I don't even know if I can explain it. It's just like it was so powerful. It still gives me chills today. And so when I came out of that meditation, I was like scrambling, like looking her up, looking everything up, trying to get my hands on everything I could learn, right? Because it was just like so incredible. And I found out she was a Greek goddess, and I was like, oh my God, So then I ended up working with a Gardenian priestess. She was a high priestess, and she of Gardenian witchcraft. And I was like, teach me everything I want to learn. Teach me everything I want to learn. And so that began my path of beginning to learn about energy and goddesses and magical workings and spell work and all of that stuff. And all this stuff was happening, right? And it was so exciting. I was learning new things, and then all of a sudden a new goddess came in, appeared to me, and her name was Freya. And I was like, oh my God, there I am. I'm like scuffling, like looking her up, finding out about her. And then there was like this, because there's so much dogma in faiths, right? There's so much dogma in faiths. Like I was telling my priestess, I was like, oh my God, like, this new goddess appeared to me. And she's like, oh, Hecate is going to get so mad at you. And I was like, what? Like, what is that? She's going to get mad at me. And she's like, I didn't have her appear. She just appeared on her own. So I cried. Like I cried because the connection that I had between both deities was just so powerful. It was riveting, and I wanted to have them both in my life, right? I didn't want to choose. They both appeared, and so I cried, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried. And this is the important part. This is the part that I remember today. And so I'm telling you this story now, so when I get to my story in just a minute, you understand what I'm talking about. I cried and cried and cried, and I said, I was talking out loud to the goddess, Hecate, and like it was like a whirlwind just came in, and it just like took over my mind. I can't even explain it. It was like psh, and I just saw this beautiful, incredible image of Hecate. And I saw this beautiful image of Freya standing behind her. And I saw this beautiful image of another goddess standing behind her who hadn't appeared to me yet. And I saw all these triangles, and I saw all this energy moving around. And it was just powerful. And Hecate came to me, and she like moved forward, and she said, "My darling, we are but one." And that is all I needed to know. At that point, it was like that was where the dogma and fears and more stuff was coming up, and I was like, this stuff is really powerful. Like what I'm learning is really powerful. There was so much release from more fear, and I could enjoy my faith in the deities that were speaking to me, and I could become one with them and become really, really connected. And I was doing a lot of mediumship readings, and I just sort of felt always kind of, I love mediumship readings, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it was like, there has to be something more here. There's got to be something more. And like I always like my spirit guides would tell me that the things that were happening to me and the things that I were going through were meant so that I could understand them and teach people at a deeper level, empowerment, and through them. So it was my spirit guides and the goddesses, and all this stuff was just beautiful, and I wanted to do that empowerment. I wanted to do it. And so I was years of doing my own schools and falling on my bottom and falling on my ass and all of this, and I saw the coaching industry started to get bigger, and I was like, I want that. I want to use my spiritual tools and my knowledge, and what I'm connected to help other people through their fears, or to develop their abilities, or just to empower them through their stuff. You use this beautiful gift for that, to empower and help people grow. And so I started getting into the coaching industry, and then there was more dogma, right? Oh, don't tell people you're a witch. Don't tell people you're pagan. Don't tell people that. They'll be afraid. They'll be afraid of you. And so I backpedaled. I was like, I really want to help people, and I don't want people to be afraid of me. So I backpedaled away from who I was, and I sort of hid the fact that I had an eclectic pagan background, that I was teaching in huge eclectic pagan groups, and that I was teaching in circles, or that I was going to circles, or that sometimes I would lead the circles. I kept all that out. I backed that all off, and I became very disconnected from the goddess. And that sort of brings us forward to this past year, when I was like, you know what, it's time for more release, and I want to get reconnected to the goddess. And I hired another amazing coach to help me to remember who I was, to get that connection back. And this is why Invoked was created, because I have been reconnecting to the goddess, Hecate, mainly, Ishtar, another one, goddess Persephone is showing up, Freya, a little bit, but it's been more of Hecate, and it's been more Ishtar lately. And so I wanted to share that journey. I wanted to share, and to share what that feels like, to get connected, to communicate, and to really understand what being invoked is, and how you can, how empowering it is, and how emotional it is. And there's been some weird energy around. So I created a program, Invoked, and there's been some kind of weird kind of energy around it, right? And there's been some weird energy around it, and I thought, and it's not really been taken off. It's not really been taken off like I thought it would. It was so guided and so inspired. And I was sitting with it today, and I was like, if there's something that feels like there's weird energy around it, maybe people are acting weird around it, maybe people you're closest to are acting weird around it, maybe you're picking up intuitive hits that feel icky and awful, and you don't want that, right? And maybe maybe there's something about it that's out of alignment. Maybe there's something about it that's out of alignment. And so today I decided that I would spend some time. I did a lot of reading yesterday. Like, I spent a lot of time reading yesterday. And then today I was like, you need to talk to the goddess. Like, you need to actually talk to the goddess. Like, if this is invoked and it's about goddess energy, you need to be talking to the goddess, right? I mean, hello, duh. So I went to the goddess and Hecate appeared, and I felt the energy around it. I even sort of cried a little bit about it, and I was like, I'm confused. I feel like this is inspirationally guided. I feel like this was meaningful, and like, she was the one who helped me to remember all the stuff, like to go all the way back from the childhood and to see those little snapshots that I just shared with all of you. And she was the one who sort of guided me, and she told me, she said, there's two things that you can do. You can sit down and let it go, or you can stand up. And like, I don't give up. So I thought about sitting down. I thought, well, maybe it'd be easier if I just sit down and let it go, just let it go. But then I felt this calling. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about the message that she wants to share. And it's time for me to stand up. And so I decided to stand up. And I said, okay, here I am. I'm standing here. Let's do this. Like, let's do this. Let's empower. Show me the direction that you want me to take this in. Show me the direction that you want me to take this in. And what she did to me is she brought me back to that moment where I saw the three goddesses, and I saw Hecate, and I saw Ishtar. I didn't know it was Ishtar at the time. It became Ishtar. And I saw Freya, the three goddesses that work with me and been working with me for years. And I remember hearing her voice, my darling, we are about one. And I realized the real mission of Invoked was not about learning about the individual goddesses for this program, but learning the aspects of the goddess and how we can find those from deep within and bring that goddess from a place from center to illuminate out into the world. And when we do that, maybe in that process of illuminating who we are through those aspects and invoking the aspects of the goddesses that we want to create for our lives, maybe it's more sensuality, maybe it's more confidence, maybe it's warrioress, maybe it's more light and princessy and more feminine, whatever that is, that you can invoke those qualities within yourself and illuminate. And at that point, allow the goddess that really wants to work with you to come to you, just like Hecate came to me, just like Freya came to me, just like Ishtar came to me. I wasn't calling them, they called to me. And then I was thinking, oh my God, like, here I am, I'm having a conversation. I've sat in rituals where I broke bread and I could see the embodiment of Hecate right in front of me. And I could see the embodiment of Freya, and I could feel her one time when she put a necklace around my neck. And like, those moments of communication, I was like, oh my God, it is teaching people not just to invoke the qualities, but to open up a mediumship ability to connect them to a higher source. My mediumship is meant to connect to a higher source, and there are so many of you women out there who are ready for that something more, and to connect in and to connect with the goddess and to learn how to communicate with the goddess and break bread with the goddess, right? And have that dialogue that feels powerful and chills and all of that. That is the intention of Invoked. That is the reason for Invoked. And so the program is it's going to be a little different, but I think I use my gifts of mediumship and I use my gifts of what that connection meant to me. I tell my stories, I share my stories, and I share what the goddess wants to share, and we learn how to connect to mediumship. We learn in that aspect how to connect to deity and how to connect to spirit guides and how to invoke those energies within us, and that is the intention of the program. That is the whole reason for the program. Now, Invoked is going to stay a 10-month program. It's a month-to-month program. It's $90 a month. I'm going to keep it that way. And it actually starts 9/20. And the reason why it starts 9/20 is because Mabon is 9/22. Some years it's 9/21, some years it's 9/22. Mabon is 9/22, which is the old witchy Thanksgiving. The witchy Thanksgiving. So we are going to, our family celebrates, our family, Bryant and I both celebrate all the major Sabbats. So we are going to celebrate, and we're having actually Brian's having his daughter and his grandchildren come in, and we're inviting my family to come in. We're going to have a nice Thanksgiving on Mabon. And so I'm going to share that kind of stuff, like the witchy holidays and what they mean and where they derive from. And so I'm going to share a little bit about that as well. We'll have some fun stuff like learning how to set up altars, because it's always important to have an altar if you're celebrating the goddess, even if you're celebrating the goddess within. You're illuminating the goddess within. It's always good to have something to celebrate the goddess and the energy of the goddess, because eventually you'll be calling that divine deity that wants to work with you and is called to work with you, right? So we'll begin learning how to set up altars, and of course we'll still have a divination each month, do a fun divination each month, but I think that the intent is to find the goddess within and pull her out and invoke the aspects of the goddesses that we want to create and learn the mediumship to connecting. So, Crystal, if you were here, will you drop that link for me? And for those of you who are interested, we are starting on 9/20. And we'll just have like a general hello on 9/20. I'll have 3 workshops a month in that group. It'll be just amazing. Just amazing. So, I don't know if there's a Facebook delay, but even if she can't drop it now, we'll get it dropped for you. Thank you. Yeah, it's about look, I don't give up easily, right? But sometimes when things are not in the right alignment, then we got to see. If something doesn't feel right, if something isn't flowing right, if something is causing some weird energies between people around people, and it's causing some kind of weird energy, then you need to sit back and take a look. But never sit down. Always stand up, especially when you got an intuitive hit. Always stand up, right? Is the delay. Always stand up. Never, never, never sit down. Stand up for your intuitive hits and follow your guidance and follow your dreams, and don't let anything stop you from that. And if something just feels weird about it, it's just that it's not in the right alignment, and we can adjust that, right? Aw, thank you, Sarah. So I hope you guys enjoyed my story. I think I'm going to be talking a lot more about my story. I'm also opening up mediumship mentoring for those of you who are interested in just learning how to develop. It's better. It is better. It's like it's a little bit. I have makeup on tonight too, but it's better. So I'll be sharing more. Doing all kinds of cool things. I love you all. I hope you're having an amazing, amazing Friday, and I'm gonna get on that podcast. Let me just give me a day or two to think about it. But yeah, I thought about doing my ghost stories, my paranormal stories of my life. Love you all. Good night.